Hello, drama lovers. Welcome back to K-pop world. In a world filled with spotlights and camera flashes, there's a side that rarely gets shown to the public. A quiet, fragile, and very real side, where even the brightest stars on screen are still just human. With tired bodies, vulnerable hearts, and silent nights. In that night, Zhao Luzi proved that even those who smile the brightest can still go through the darkest hours. But she wasn't entirely alone, because someone stayed beside her, quietly, but present. And when this story came to light, the world quietly wept with her. It was just another night, at least to those watching from the outside. The filming location buzzed with routine chaos, lights, cables, the director's voice echoing, and actors rehearsing lines. But in the midst of this usual whirlwind, one figure stood out. Zhao Luzi. She tried to laugh like she always did. She greeted the crew with a warm smile and waved at the makeup staff. But someone noticed the smile didn't reach her eyes. There were shadows beneath them, and her movement seemed slower than usual. Maybe it was lack of sleep, maybe fatigue, or maybe something more. Luzi stepped onto the set. She was professional. Even as her body slightly trembled and her breath felt short, she kept going. She completed her scenes, retook lines when needed. No complaints, just a faint quiver in her voice. But when the director finally called cut for the night, her body nearly collapsed backward. An assistant nearby caught her just in time. "She's burning up. She's got a fever," one of the crew whispered. But she didn't say a word. Production halted immediately. A doctor was called. Luzi was brought into a small resting room, usually reserved for actors awaiting their scenes. Inside, there was only a narrow couch, a water dispenser, and a flickering fluorescent lamp. The room was quiet. But that night, it became the silent witness of something unforgettable. Wu Lei, who had just finished his own scenes, was supposed to head home. His car was waiting outside since 9 p.m. His manager stood by the door, signaling they were good to leave. Wu Lei looked toward the rest area. Just once. And that was enough. His steps changed. He canceled his ride. Said nothing. Just a wave to his manager, and the door closed again. No cameras recorded it. No reporters. No social media posts. But according to several staff members on set, Wu Lei sat quietly in a small chair in the corner, watching from afar, not interfering, not drawing attention, just staying. And he stayed. 1 hour passed, then 2. While the doctor checked on Zhao Luzi's rising and falling fever, Wu Lei remained. Occasionally, he would stand to fetch warm water. Sometimes, he asked softly, "Still warm?" But beyond that, he did only one thing. He waited. When Luzi finally opened her eyes, half-conscious, the only face she saw was his. Wu Lei, sitting silently beside the makeshift bed, his hand gently brushing the sweat from her forehead. No dramatic lines like in dramas. No grand declarations. Just calm breathing, and a presence that didn't need words. According to an assistant director, Wu Lei refused to leave even when it was past 2 a.m. He said, "If she wakes up and no one's there, it'll feel wise." His words were simple, but the weight behind them was undeniable. When morning came, Zhao Luzi still hadn't fully recovered, but she could sit up slowly, her face pale and weak. And when she realized who had stayed with her through the night, her eyes filled with tears. Not from pain, but from something much deeper. Wu Lei gave her a faint smile, then softly said, "Feeling better now." No hugs, no media leaks. But from that moment on, their silence spoke volumes. The story didn't reach the public immediately. Wu Lei didn't mention it. Luzi never brought it up in interviews. But a few days later, a crew member anonymously shared it on a fan forum. No names, no pictures, just one line. That night, he didn't leave. He stayed by Zhao Luzi's side from 9 p.m. until sunrise. And he didn't let anyone take photos. Just one sentence. And the internet exploded. Fans flooded the comments. Some in disbelief, others in tears, and many just silent for a long moment, before typing slowly. So, this wasn't a drama. This was real. The fan base that once thrived on subtle glances and behind-the-scenes clips now felt like they had been handed the emotional confirmation they never expected. That moment, so private, suddenly made everything feel more true. He stayed when everyone else left, one fan wrote. Not everyone would do that. Not every man could do that. Media outlets rushed to confirm the story. But still, no statements were made. No press releases. No clarifications. Only silence. And that silence made everything feel more real. Fans began illustrating the scene through fan art. Zhao Luzi resting in a dim room. Wu Lei beside her on a small chair, holding a damp cloth. These drawings went viral. Not because they were pretty, but because people believed them. They believed that love, or something just as deep, existed in that room. When Luzi returned to the set a week later, people noticed one small change. Wu Lei walked just a little closer to her than before. Not obvious, not overly romantic, but enough to show that since that night, something had shifted. Luzi didn't say much, but her smile had changed. There was a peace behind it, and when asked about her health, she simply said, "I'm feeling much better now, because so many people cared." Yes, many people cared, but the one who stayed through the night was only one. Today, this story is still being shared, not because of scandal, not because of hype, but because of a simple truth that wasn't manufactured. That behind the glittering world of entertainment still exists a human side. Quiet, pure, and full of presence. Is this love, or just the care of a deeply kind friend? We may never know, because they never explained. But maybe they don't have to. Sometimes, silence is enough. Sometimes, presence speaks the loudest. And for us, drama lovers, stories like this aren't just stories. They are reminders that in a world filled with noise and light, the most touching moments are the quietest ones. What do you think? Was Wu Lei just a caring co-star? Or is there something more behind his quiet loyalty? Let us know in the comments. We'll keep following this story closely. And if any updates come to light, you'll be the first to know. See you in the next video. Only here, on K-Pop World, where dramas feel more real than fiction.